I'm Bill Urich. My friends call me Way Out Willard. Over the years, I've had my hands in all kinds of motorsports. Motorcycles, snowmobiles, go-karts, you name it. But my true passion is drag racing. And if you enjoy that kind of action, get in and hang on. And welcome to Way Out Willard's Wild World of Motorsports. Howdy folks, welcome to Way Out Willard's Motorsports. We are at the Wisconsin Automotive Museum in Hartford, Wisconsin. And we're going to go in and look at some great cars and meet some great folks. Here at the Automotive Museum in Hartford, Wisconsin, they have a pretty elaborate train set here that is just detailed beautifully. And I don't know, we were here just lucky enough to have someone turn it on, and what a treat, eh, Tom? It is just beautiful, and it looks like it is in excellent operating condition, as does most of the pieces here in this museum. Hey folks, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dale Anderson, Executive Director here at the museum. And how long have you held that title, Dale?
Well, basically started this whole function, the museum. I and a few guys from the Chamber of Commerce board, and we started the idea back in '81 and remained an idea until 1984 in December, when the cannery here in town, after much discussion that I had with them, decided to donate the property to the museum project.
Oh, great.
And as soon as we got to the end of the negotiations with the cannery, we incorporated as a not-for-profit educational organization, and then we started to clean out the building.
Which consisted of what? Lots of machinery and
there was a lot of machinery that was left here that really wasn't of great value. When the cannery left, they took most of the equipment that had value, and we ended up with an awful lot of scrap, several tons of scrap that was all kind of torn out of here. We sold some of it, you know, and often we'd get somebody in to do the scrapping and let them keep the scrap, you know, sell it for their cost, so it didn't cost us anything. And then for a whole summer, I had, through the Jobs Training Partnership Act, I had youth employment kids here, and all summer long, that's what we did. We hauled out trash out of here.
Right.
So it was quite a project that took all summer just to do that. And then in fall of '85, we actually started to do some painting and that sort of thing. We did borrow money from the local housing authority at that time, that's what it was called, commercial rehab loan. And we started on this basic room with the relighting and cleaning of the floors and laying of the black and white tile and all of those projects. And by July of 1986, I opened up with this room only and 46 cars.
Is that right? I tell you what a beautiful job. This is the only room I've been in so far today, but I mean, it's just outstanding. And to imagine that this was once a cannery, which is, I could imagine, a pretty messy place.
Well, it wasn't so much that, it was so much scrap iron that was here that
right?
we had to get rid of. This room now basically is pretty much reserved to Wisconsin cars, and also nothing newer than 1957.
Really?
Because Nash became AMC, or American Motors Corporation, about '57, and so that's what we've done. We've kept it this floor for that purpose. So we feature the Kissel, which of course was made here in Hartford for 25 years, from '06 through '31. That's our feature car, and our second feature car is Nash, another Wisconsin car. We do have some other examples of cars from Wisconsin in other areas of the museum, but I'd really try to maintain nothing newer than '57 down here, except when we have a special car in.
Right. Well, speaking of Kissel cars, let's go to our first Kissel car and take a look, and maybe you can give us some background on it.
You bet. we'll do that.
You know, folks, you know me. You're usually used to seeing me at a drag strip or a car show somewhere. And I got to be honest with you, I heard the name Kissel before, but I really didn't have, I didn't have much knowledge of them, and I didn't realize that they were that significant in Wisconsin.
Well, you know, Kissel was the second longest lived car builder in the state of Wisconsin. All, you know, over 20 years in length of construction. They had a tremendous size factory. They made about 35,000 vehicles of all kinds. Yeah. Kissel was made right here in Hartford, Wisconsin. At their peak, they employed 1,000 people. From cars to trucks, from ambulances to hearses. And I have examples here of cars, trucks, and fire engines. You know, Nash being the longest lived, and then Kissel, and then Mitchell, that was made in Racine.
Let's talk about this example right in front of us.
This car is an interesting, this is the famous Gold Bug, as it was nicknamed. The car is a speedster, was helped designed by Fritz Warner, the body designer for Kissel, and also a man named Conover T. Silver from New York helped in the design. Conover Silver was a car dealer in New York area. Anyhow, the car got its name because it was painted yellow and black. And a guy named Brownie used to travel the state of Wisconsin every summer, and he would do stories about Wisconsin. And and every year he would borrow a car. And one year he got a Kissel, and it was this color, yellow and black. He thought the car was so neat, he thought it'd be a good idea. Let's run a contest and name the car. And so that's how it got its name, Gold Bug. Someone named it Gold Bug, and that was the name that was picked out. Anyhow, a lot of famous people had Gold Bugs. Amelia Earhart, Claudette Colbert, just a lot of movie stars. And in their heyday, Kissel, if people would come to town, they'd stay at the hotel that was on the corner of Highway 60 and Highway 83. They'd walk over to the factory, which was just a few doors down, and watch their car being built.
Is that right?
So that was one of the interesting things. Now, even though this is called a speedster, Kissel never won any records for fast travel. Okay. They won hill climbing contests, downhill braking contests, and things like that. But as far as speed, they were geared for the farm. And so, you know, when you drive one, I drive this one. When you drive it, you feel like you need a fourth gear or maybe even a fifth gear,
right?
Because it's so geared so low. Okay, but anyhow, it was an interesting car. It had the the gold color. It's a 6-cylinder engine. It has a top, of course, that comes up, and there is a drawer, what they call a drawer seat, that pulls out from the side.
Neat.
And that was a place where you could get an extra passenger or two. We happen to call it a mother-in-law seat or a bad boy seat, okay. One or the other.
What did Kissel make their own power plants for these cars? Or?
Kissel made all of their own 4-cylinder engines after about 1909, and they made all of their 6-cylinder engines. When it came to 8-cylinder engines, they would buy short blocks basically from Lycoming, and they would modify the engines and then put those in their cars. And then, as a matter of fact, they made some improvements on the Lycoming engine, and Lycoming liked them and included those improvements in their regular production for cars.
Oh, for cars.
Yeah,
oh, I see.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But Lycoming, by the way, is an aircraft engine builder.
That's right. So anyhow, the Kissel Gold Bug is the most famous. This one I like to talk about because we just got this. This is a 1926 Kissel. It's a coupe, convertible coupe with a rumble seat. And we just got it. We traded a 1934 Pierce Arrow limousine for it.
Really?
But, our namesake, or the reason we started here is because Kissel was the name, that was the part of the game here in town.
Absolutely.
But this is all been restored as the all the wonderful leather, and of course a very simple dash. But even then, they had good operating speedometers, odometers, and fuel gauges, and all that good stuff. So it was a very nice car. Some people want me to say, well, was it real expensive? Well, in those days, yeah, it was expensive. It was $25,000 to $3,500 for a new one. But it would be kind of between a Cadillac and an Oldsmobile. It was someplace in between, if you can relate to those two cars.
I can't believe how beautiful this place is with the antique gas pumps and the neon. And I mean, all of the automobilia that goes along with the museum. Dale, you've done a fabulous job. But right now, tell us about this 1912 Kissel car.
What's interesting about this car, it is 1912. It is totally original, and it still runs.
Is that right?
It runs just fine. The magneto isn't working, but it will run on the battery power. It's a good example of how well sometimes you find them. Next to us is how well you normally find them, which is pretty rough.
Right, yeah.
It takes a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money to restore something like that.
Wow, that's a pretty rusty but pretty cool old car, Dale.
Yeah, you betcha.
And a 1923 Kissel truck. Give us some history on this one.
Well, this one's an interesting truck in that we bought this at an auction. The money was donated to us to buy it, and we bought it in southern Michigan. The owner before that came from Denver, Colorado. What's interesting is that the title I found behind the picture frame, and there was a business card of the guy that originally sold the truck. Anyhow, it was titled in 23 to a woman.
Is that right?
It had no men name on it at all. Well, we looked up through some sources down in Denver to find out what she did with it. Well, it turns out her husband was listed as, in the phone books they listed what your occupation was, and was listed as driver. So he drove this. What's another thing that's interesting about it is that in Colorado, the Kissel dealer down there insisted that the hard rubber tires were too hard on the drivers. So all of his trucks had air tires or balloon tires on the front and hard rubber on the rear.
Is that right?
Because after all, balloon tire couldn't hold weight, right? It would blow up. Well,
Right.
Anyhow, that's the way he set up all of his trucks that he sold out of there. And of course, I got his business card. This one, we did not do anything to the engine. Once we cranked it over and found out one valve wasn't going up and down, we used WD-40 and a rubber mallet and worked the WD-40 in, and finally everything was turning. Everything starts well, runs well. Love to use it in parades. People just love to see us in a parade with this thing. You know, you can put it in first gear, you go uphill, downhill, doesn't make any difference. It just so goes the same speed. Anyhow, it's attracted a lot of attention, and we've had a lot of fun with it.
It's beautiful. I mean, did you find it in this shape, or is this a restored?
No, we restored it. We didn't restore the engine, but we did restore all of the body and stuff. We had people donate money, and we took it to a place that did the restoration. Then we had the wood box. Wood was donated from a lumber yard. The upholstery, the leather, was donated by the leather company here in town, WB Place, and it was just a big combination deal. Now this one looks a little stripped down. There's no windshield. Well, that wasn't a stock item. You paid extra for a windshield. Doesn't have side curtains. Again, stock item. Right. Did not have side curtains. This also has oil lamps and no headlights.
Oh, great.
Well, they didn't. You know, headlights was another option.
Nighttime operation wasn't big.
That's right. That's right. So anyhow, this was sort of a, I like to call it our community car, because a lot of people were involved in the restoration of it, and it's turned out very well, and we do like to run it. After we did the business with the valves on it, was at one of the board directors' houses, and I drove it from there to here. It smoked like crazy. Just blew like crazy. By the time I drove the 7 miles and got back here, everything had reseated itself.
Great. And
it doesn't, no blue at all anymore.
Awesome.
It's perfect.
Let me ask you one question about this truck. Now, if you purchased this truck back in 1923, yeah, did it come with a wooden bed like that,
no,
or is that something you had to build on your own?
You did that on your own.
Is that right?
And I'm not totally sure what the guy carried on it, because when we got it, it had just a steel, pieces of sheet steel on there, 1/4 inch thick. And then somebody told me that what they may have hauled there were large rolls of paper, like printing press paper. Sure. And that they thought that maybe that's what he did there.
Flatbed application?
Flatbed, yeah.
Well, awesome.
This box isn't perfectly right, but it works.
It looks great to me.
Yeah.
Now, Dale, look at this beautiful old fire truck from the Juneau, Wisconsin Fire Department.
That's right. It's still owned by the Juneau Fire Department. It's been here for quite a few years. They have had it out a couple times. Kissel built fire engine chassis, and then they would take the chassis and send them to Pierce, and Pierce would outfit them as fire engines.
Okay, so this is actually a Pierce operating unit, and they're located up in the Fox Valley.
PIRSCH down in Kenosha or Racine.
Okay.
Not Pierce.
Not Pierce. The guy.
Pierce.
Okay, thank you.
Anyhow, this is something else that Kissel built. The Hartford Fire Department still has their Kissel built fire engine. The Hall of Flame in Phoenix, Arizona, they start out with a Hartford Kissel ladder truck. They use them all over the country, and a lot of them in Wisconsin and Madison, and so that was another type of vehicle that Kissel built.
Awesome. Well, and as well, they helped in the war effort back then.
Yeah, Kissel built part of the order for FWDs. FWD couldn't fill the whole order, so Kissel built about 5,000 of them. The other thing that Kissel built were some other pickup, half-ton trucks, also for the war, and they built ambulances for the Serbian army.
Really?
About 100 units of that. One of the interesting things, Kissel, when the Kissel built their 1-ton truck for the Army, the war ended, and the Army didn't want to pay for them. But they sued. Kissel sued the Army, and of course they won. So they had to pay for it.
A 1902 Rambler, Dale.
Well,
it steers like my old golf cart.
Yeah, it's got a tiller, that's for sure, and it has a transmission very similar to what Henry Ford ended up using. But in 1902, Thomas B. Jeffrey, who came out of Chicago, they were building bicycles down there. They came up to Kenosha, and they started building this car. Now, they built 1,500 of this model in 1 year, which was just a fantastic number of cars. It doesn't look like much more than a buggy, but none of them did in 1902. Thomas B. Jeffrey built these cars for many years, had many models. He passed away, family took it over, and as I understand, they went into too many different models. And then I guess there was a little things going on in the family, which I overheard, that's all.
Oh, okay.
But the main point is that about the same time in 1916, Charlie Nash was either quitting or got fired from Walter Durant, one or the other. Never been proved either way. And so he came over here and he bought up the Thomas B. Jeffrey Company. And so that was the start of Nash. And the first models of them came out, and they they weren't changed at all in 16. They just put the Nash label on it. So this is our oldest piece.
Wow, and it is in pristine condition.
Yeah, it's been on tours around museums here in Wisconsin.
Wow, it is just beautiful. And that as well is a great story, Dale.
Yeah.
You are the executive director at the museum for a reason, my friend. Now, Dale, you gotta give us some background on how you got your hands on a Tucker.
Well, it wasn't so much my getting my hands on it as it coming to us.
Oh, really?
It's owned by some people in roughly 30 miles from here. It's a 1948 Tucker. Of course, it's number 48, and it has all of the Tucker styling, with all the Tucker features on it. It has the front headlight that turns with the steering wheel.
Right.
It has the windows that pop out in case of an accident, so you don't go through glass. And it's got a rear-mounted engine, a 6-cylinder, which is basically an aircraft engine. At the change from air-cooled to water-cooled to build this and go into production. Now, I've seen the value of these things go all over the place. The last time I saw any numbers, it was 800,000.
Really?
It goes up and down. When that movie came out,
one of 51 cars
That's right.
ever produced.
That's exactly right, and they were built down in Chicago. And when the movie came out about it, then of course the sales just went sky high.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a very nice vehicle. This one is quite pristine. We've got some other information here about the car. The specs on it. It was only what $2,400 was the price new.
Right.
And if it's worth, even if it's only worth half a million, it's
Absolutely. And you know what?
pretty good investment.
In 1948, to have a vehicle that made 166 horsepower, that was big time power.
You bet. And as I understand it, what happened was they couldn't get engines from the big guys, and so they knew about the Franklin. Franklin used to build air-cooled cars, and found out that they were in tough straits, and they needed an engine for the Tucker. So they talked with Franklin about the helicopter engine, because Franklin was making aircraft engines, and so that's how they ended up with the rear-mounted aircraft engine.
Well, I tell you what a great display, and what a piece of history right here.
Yeah, it's on loan to us. It's an extended loan, so it'll be here for quite a while. However, if somebody comes to the museum, they have to understand that any one of these cars may not be here the day that they come. I mean, like this fellow takes it out every once in a while just to exercise it. So you never quite know, but you can always call us.
Okay, this is the Wisconsin Automotive Museum.
Well, You see, automotive, I use the Webster's Dictionary, and anything that is self-propelled is automotive.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself.
So that covers me on outboard engines, boats, planes, and trains. But yeah, predominantly we have cars.
Okay, and in my definition, folks, motorsports includes anything that's powered by fuel, be it wood, coal, or...
There you are.
Tell us about your wonderful locomotive.
This steam locomotive is a Sioux Line 1003 is its number. It used to haul iron ore mostly from the North Dakota across Minnesota, Wisconsin into Michigan. We don't know how many millions of miles it has on it, but it's a Mikado configuration. Mikado being a style that was developed in China because the curves on the Chinese tracks are quite short, and they wanted to get engines that had enough drive wheels. This has got 8 drive wheels, and what would happen is the standard engines wouldn't fit the curves. So they came up with the Mikado, which is a short configuration. This particular engine and tender, when the engine and tender are full of water and coal, weighs about 250 tons. Now, if it's pulling a load, like when they pulled the circus train back in 2002, they're going to use about 170 pounds of coal per mile and about 145 gallons of water per mile. So you can see that even though it used an awful lot, it was still more efficient than having, 15 or 20 trucks driving down the highway.
Right, that is a lot of shovel work.
This particular engine is owned by 2 families. They've owned it for years. The tracks come right into the museum building because this was a cannery, and this is where they used to load and unload canned goods. So the main line is right outside the building, and then of course that line runs into other lines like the Canadian National and Burlington and all the rest of them. Sometimes we have difficulties getting it running on some of the other companies' tracks. We've had excellent response with Wisconsin Southern Railway. They let us use their track almost as often as we need to, and in exchange, we do some things for him too. But it's a real nice working relationship, and we're really, really pleased to have that. Most regular railroads really don't want to see old steam engines running down their tracks, and because there's several issues between the smoke and the and cinders flying sometimes and things like that, and breakdowns. This one has not broken down since the new people have owned it, and it never broke down pulling the circus train, which was one big train.
Well, Dale, we can't thank you enough for your time today at the Wisconsin Automotive Museum. You've been more than gracious.
Thanks for coming out.
Truly rolled out the red carpet for us.
And it's not that far from Racine to Hartford, is it?
It's really not, folks. I urge you to come here and check it all out. We will leave you the website on the screen for you and directions to the museum. And again, Dale, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
and on his farm he had a deer. Oh, we can't do this. We're J.I. Case guys, huh? Now, look at this beautiful 1937 John Deere tractor, meticulously restored down to every nut and bolt. It is just gorgeous, and as is everything in this museum. This, folks, is a 1917 Crow Elkhart. I've never heard of it before, but look at some of the cool things that they thought about on this car. A golf bag carrier. Pretty neat, huh? I mean, this car is in meticulous condition, and man, it is just gorgeous. And Tom, I think if we had it, we'd probably put a big V8 in it and take it drag racing. Folks, if you go to Sears, for $200, you can buy yourself an engine hoist or a cherry picker that we all call them. But check out this engine hoist, made in Canton, Ohio. I'm not sure when, there's no sign on it, but this is actually chain drive with pulleys. And you put a big handle right here and click, 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 click all the way around, and you'd slowly lift the engine out of the chassis of your car, truck, whatever the case may be. Now, I told you about the Sears thing to tell you about this. This thing looks like it weighs about at least 1,000 pounds. It is just big and clunky, and today's cherry pickers fold up nice. They got wheels. You pull back on them like a dolly, and you roll it right to the bed of your pickup truck and toss it right in. Imagine trying to toss this big guy into the bed of your pickup truck. But again, beautiful piece of automotive history right here at the Hartford Auto Museum. You know, today's computerized cars are relatively easy to tune. You can do it right through a computer program, and in most cases you can get that program right for your laptop computer. And look at this sun infrared engine performance tester. It gives you your voltmeter, you know, your cylinder power. I believe that you could hook up this and it would tell you each pressurized cylinder, what leak down is. You put a line that goes into the spark plug hole in your cylinder, turn the car over, leave it for a second, and whatever this drops is how much cylinder pressure you're leaking in a certain amount of time. A dwell meter. Now there's a joke going around that you know an old hot rodder because he'll open up his toolbox and there'll be a dwell meter. Dwell is how long open your ignition points stay closed or open, okay? An oscillator. Tom, help me out. Oscilloscope, thank you. And this just really just helps tune that engine down so it runs smoothly. And to be honest with you, I really don't have a lot of knowledge about them. But just from then until now, what mechanics used to go through just to tune a car, and now they can do it just by a few simple clicks on a computer. But I thought this piece is very historic, and it's still in excellent condition. You know, Dale told us some interesting facts about the Kissel Corporation and their manufacturing end of it. And in 1937, Kissel was having some financial difficulties, and they stopped building cars. And they tried to hang on by a thread, and they started building small outboard engines on these. What a great collection of them. Just about every little outboard engine that the Kissel company had built. And I tell you what, just some great pieces all around. You know, folks, as soon as you walk through the door of the museum here, you look through this glass and you see this car, and I am sure that most car guys that have a pretty good automobile knowledge will say, what the heck is that? This is a Moore's Ostentine Opera V8. And this Bruce Moore guy from right here in Wisconsin built this car. It's a hand-built car. Look at the amount of glass in this thing. And you know what's really crazy about it is it has no side doors. You actually have to enter and exit the vehicle from the back. Note the big door on the roof of the car that actually pneumatically raises, and then you can enter the car through the back. And a weird fact is that people like Johnny Carson, Lawrence Welk, Tom Jones, Alfred Hitchcock, John Forsythe have all ridden in this car. And I think it's just crazy. It is just huge. It just has to float like a tank. But I have no other words. Tom, I have no words for this car. It's crazy. And, well, folks, I hope you enjoyed your time today at the Wisconsin Automotive Museum. I know I have. I'd love to thank Dale Anderson again and all of the great folks here at the museum. They really did roll out the red carpet for us. And thanks for being here, folks. See you next time on Walt Willard's Wild World of Motorsports.